Thank you for joining us on Access Asia. I'm Delano D'Souza. Coming up, the United Nations warning Afghanistan risks destabilization after hundreds of thousands of Afghans were expelled from Iran. Plus, from the Indus Valley civilization to present day, we'll be speaking to the historian behind a new book which compresses 5,000 years of history on the subcontinent. But first, hundreds of thousands of Afghans have been streaming over the border from Iran. This after the Iranian government began one of the largest deportation drives in modern history. In May, authorities announced undocumented migrants must leave, but in the aftermath of the war with Israel and the crackdown which follows, even those with valid permits are being affected. UN officials fear the influx could destabilize Afghanistan even further. Karis Garland reports.
At this reception center on the border, thousands of Afghans deported from Iran await processing and transport, many unsure of their next move.
I was in Iran for 5 years. I'm not fully aware of the situation in Afghanistan. If I can find a job here that covers our daily expenses, I'll stay and won't go anywhere. But if that's not possible, we'll be forced to go to Iran again, or Pakistan, or another country.
According to UN agencies, some 500,000 Afghans have flooded back into the country since the beginning of June. This after Tehran warned anyone staying in Iran illegally to leave by July 6, though there are reports some of those with documents have also been expelled. Returnees have reported harassment, arrests and financial losses due to hasty departures.
I have no desire at all to ever go back to Iran, because the way Iran treats all foreign nationals, especially our Afghan brothers, no other country does that.
The deportations, part of a program Iran announced in March, radically increased in pace after the 12-day conflict with Israel. The United Nations has sounded the alarm on what it called a crackdown on minority groups, saying Afghans are among the hundreds of people detained on accusations of collaboration or espionage. Aid groups fear the mass influx of people to Afghanistan will further destabilize the country, which already faces entrenched poverty, unemployment and the effects of climate change. The Norwegian Refugee Council has warned that if current trends continue, Afghanistan could see over 3 million returnees by the end of the year.
Now, compressing 5,000 years of Indian history into a single book is an ambitious task, but that's exactly what my guest Audrey Truschke has attempted to do. From the Indus Valley civilization to present-day India, 5,000 years of history on the subcontinent is an in-depth but accessible read for anyone curious about the region today. We can now bring in the book's author, historian Audrey Truschke. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. You cover a lot of ground with this book, 5,000 years. Which period was particularly hard to compress?
Thank you so much for having me. I think in many ways the modern period was the hardest to compress because people know the most about it. If I omitted something that happened 3,000 years ago, most people probably didn't notice. But if I omitted a political event that's within living memory that happened in the 80s or 90s, people are going to notice that. And I omitted a lot of those.
Now, when people learn about Indian history, they may learn about the fight for independence. But what struck me was the level of interconnectedness which existed way back when. When we think of trade, for instance, India was exporting pepper and influencing cuisines far, far away.
Absolutely. The Indian subcontinent has always been connected with the rest of the world. It has never existed in isolation. And so we can't understand just India, just the subcontinent. We have to think about their trade relations with the Romans. Even further back, we have to think about migrations inside and outside of the subcontinent. A bit later, we have to think about major cultural exports, ranging from chess to Parcheesi to Buddhism to Sanskrit.
There's also something that which struck me when reading your book is that how India was involved in the slave trade. This is something I don't think many people know about.
Absolutely. So history is not a lineup of beautiful things we all love. History is the good and the bad. It's the evil and the virtuous. It's the ugly and the beautiful. Indians have been involved in the slave trade, both as slave traders and as enslaved peoples, as long as we can document the slave trade having existed, which is about 2,500 years ago. So it's sort of where I go with that in the book.
Now, you also cover Mughal rule. Why do you think the Muslim ruler Aurangzeb is still misunderstood today? Yes, he's not all good. He did bring back attacks on non-Muslims, but there was intermarriage at the time, and he was also employing Hindus to state positions.
Absolutely. So Aurangzeb may be a new name to some of you, but to others of you, you know that Aurangzeb comes up on a weekly basis, if not more often, in the Indian media and in cultural conversations on the subcontinent. I think the reason why Aurangzeb is still so widely misunderstood is that people don't actually want to understand him. He was a pre-modern Indian ruler. He was ruthless. He had a large land-based empire. He ruled more land than any other ruler in pre-modern Indian history by a significant margin. And he didn't do that through being nice to people. But as I said, it was pre-modernity. He was actually more similar to other rulers than to not. Now, all of that might sound fine in a college classroom. It sounds fine to me as a historian, but that doesn't get you the guy you can sort of rally around in modern 21st century political rallies as this big, bad Hindu hater who's a Muslim guy, which is exactly what Hindu nationalists want to do today.
Is it a fair assessment that religion was more personal and less ingrained before colonialism? Because it was the British that put religion on the census, even though it wasn't being done over in Britain at the time.
I don't think I would use the word personal. I would use the words like fluid.
Okay.
I think religion was very much a community affair. It identified you with a certain group of people, but the boundaries were less harsh. There were people who identified as Muslims and Hindus. There were a lot of people who we call Hindu today who didn't use that term. That's really a term used from the 18th century on forward. Religion's categories just looked a little bit different, and it wasn't the central organizing sort of social concept of the subcontinent. If you think it is today, you have the British to thank for that.
Now, when we think of the British rule in India, we often praise them for giving India the railways and the universities. But what I don't understand is, why was it cheaper to study at Oxford University than Presidency University?
That was a fun tidbit I came across in the book, right? It was not only cheaper, by a significant margin, right? 3 or 5 times, as I recall. Maybe some people praise British colonialism. In the historical profession, we've largely moved beyond that. British colonialism was absolutely brutal. They caused famine after famine. They decimated India. The modern nation state of India is among the poorest states in the world, and that is owing to colonial stagnation. 75 years later, they're still trying to recover from it. So I don't know how much we're praising it, but I think, the key to understanding British colonialism, in a sense, is to understand that for the British, it was about them, always. The goal was to enrich Britain at the expense of Indians. There was nothing benevolent about it.
Now, Audrey, you know that you're no stranger to controversy. What is it about your work that rubs Hindu nationalists the wrong way?
That's a great question. I think some of it's my identity, that I'm not Indian. I'm not South Asian. That's a point I actually address in the afterword of the book. And I think part of it is that I'm pretty attached, as in 100% fully attached to historical truth. I will not be swayed by modern politics and modern pressures, no matter how extreme those can be.
But because you're a historian, when for your research, you have to go to the archives. How do you go about collecting all this research? And also, what Indian languages do you speak to do that?
So I read a number of Indian languages, including Sanskrit and Persian, which were used by different communities at different points in pre-modern South Asian history. I also read, to a slightly lesser degree, Hindi, Braj Bhasha, which is a version of Hindi, and Urdu as well. In terms of archives, no South Asian nation has ever centralized their archives, so they're all over the place. They're in Pakistan, they're in India, they're in Delhi, and they're in small places like Tonk in Rajasthan. Many are also at the British Library. British took a lot of stuff from South Asians, right? Manuscripts are a form of wealth among many, many other things. And of course, we have published works as well. In the digital age, it is a little bit easier to do archival work from abroad.
Professor Truschke, thank you so much for joining us on the program today and sharing your insights with us into your book, which is now available.
Thank you for having me.
Now, a young boy in Indonesia became a viral sensation for his boat dancing moves. Jennifer Ben Brahim has more on what's been a valuable part of the country's rich cultural heritage and diversity.
hypnotic dance moves that set social media alight. Dika is just one of the many boys in the Indonesian province of Riau, known as Cukang Tari or Ora farmers, taking part in an annual boat race dating back to the 17th century. The Paku Jalur Festival is a celebration of Indonesia's rich maritime heritage. The role of these boys dancing precariously at the bow of a boat, boosting the morale of the rowers and the audience. Dika has become the internet's favourite hype man, from memes to TikTok videos mimicking his moves, enjoyed by millions of people around the world, including the Champions League winning football team, Paris Saint-Germain. The Paku Jalur's surge in global popularity has led to the Indonesian government designating it as a national intangible cultural heritage, with viral sensation Dika now an official tourism ambassador.
That's it for this edition of Access Asia. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.